The $6 trillion that I originally proposed was probably too little. $3.5 trillion should be a minimum, but I accept that there's going to have to be give and take.
Once Congress officially passes the spending bill, they'll also have to agree to raise the nation's debt ceiling before it hits its limit later this month. The Falcons dropping a tough one to the Washington
and tackling climate change, while also setting aside $1 trillion for aging roads, bridges, and water pipes. The larger plan is yet to materialize into legislation, while the smaller has already passed the Senate but is being held up in the House. He believes those are some of the nation's most pressing priorities. But that hangs in the balance as Democrats enter a highly uncertain time, as party moderates like Senators Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona butt heads with progressives. But with no support from Republicans, Democrats must work together to come to an agreement. But now they face a new end-of-month deadline to make progress. Biden is expected to be in touch with the two holdouts today after a Friday trip to Capitol Hill yielded some progress, but no results. Let's also look ahead at the U.S. Supreme Court now, whose term got underway today. Top of mind for many is abortion. The justices will hear a Mississippi challenge to previous rulings that guaranteed a woman's right to an abortion nationwide. Guns are also a topic. New York State is among 6 states that limit who has the right to carry a weapon in public, and a challenge to that could expand gun rights in the U.S. State secrets are also up for deliberation, as 2 cases examine what the government claims that term encompasses. The justices will also hear arguments from parents in Maine who are suing over the state's exclusion of religious schools from a tuition program for families who live in towns that don't have public schools. The Biden administration, meanwhile, will ask for the death sentence of Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev to be reinstated. And Republican Texas Senator Ted Cruz will have the chance to challenge rules about limits on repaying a candidate for federal office who loans their campaign money.
As Republicans are in swift opposition to the legislation, Fox's Madeline Rivera has more from Washington.
Democrats are pushing forward with talks on 2 major bills, infrastructure and social spending, despite missing a self-imposed deadline to get the former passed last week. This time, the Biden administration says it's not being held to an artificial timeline.
This is just about delivering and making sure that we deliver both bills to the American people.
Still, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is setting October 31st as the new deadline for the passage of the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. But first, the party must reach a compromise on the larger package, because progressives say they won't support infrastructure without it.
It's never been about the price tag. It's about what we want to deliver.
The top line number is key, though, for 2 holdout senators, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who are calling for a smaller package. Manchin says he'll back a $1.5 trillion bill.
But I'm listening to Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, as Chuck Schumer is, every single day.
As negotiations on the 2 pieces of legislation continue, President Biden is warning about a more immediate deadline, October 18th. That's when the U.S. is expected to exhaust its cash reserves unless Congress raises or suspends the debt ceiling. Republicans say Democrats should do so on their own.
I hope that Republicans don't be so irresponsible as to refuse to raise the debt limit.
In a new development, the Senate parliamentarian has ruled that a standalone bill aimed at raising the debt limit can be passed through reconciliation, which only requires a simple majority. In Washington, Madeline Rivera, Fox News.
Slowing down production. An expert says wages have increased.
To deliver fuel across Britain continues to cause empty pumps and long lines at gas stations. Over the weekend, Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned that supply chain problems and shortages in food and fuel could continue until Christmas. Around 200 military personnel have been deployed as part of Operation Escalade to drive oil tankers and deliver supplies to stations affected by the fuel crisis. One thing impacting economies worldwide is the slowdown in Chinese manufacturing. Power shortages due to the cost of energy going up have harmed China's manufacturing a great deal. And that's not the only change slowing down production. An expert says wages have increased in coastal areas and investors are moving factories. They're either outsourcing those jobs to other countries or moving factories to inland China. Justin Yu also believes the government slowed the manufacturing down on purpose so the Chinese Communist Party can show its power. He tells us to expect inflated prices, but he also has a suggestion. The U.S. should stop outsourcing.
Stop chasing our manufacturer out of the country. Why we have to outsource everything? Our employment. We need some meaningful job. Not only in the service sector. We need the people who graduate from high school can have decent blue-collar job, receive decent salary to feed their family. But we don't see that anymore. This is what a shame.
And other assets for the past quarter century. The report released Sunday by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists is being dubbed the Pandora Papers because the findings shed light on the previously hidden dealings of the elite and the corrupt and how they have used offshore accounts to shield assets collectively worth trillions of dollars. There are more than 330 current and former politicians identified as beneficiaries, with big names like former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. Some governments have already pledged investigations. North Korea has restored dormant communications hotlines with South Korea in a small reconciliation step today. The move is an apparent push to win outside concessions with a mix of conciliatory gestures and missile tests. North Korean liaison officers answered phone calls by their South Korean counterparts over a set of cross-border government and military channels this morning for the first time in nearly 2 months. But it is unclear how substantially the move will improve ties between the Koreas, as Pyongyang has a history of using the hotlines as a bargaining chip in dealings with Seoul. Forward in a 60 Minutes interview Sunday as the woman who anonymously filed complaints with federal law enforcement that the company's own research shows how it magnifies hate and misinformation. She said Facebook prematurely turned off safeguards designed to thwart misinformation after Joe Biden defeated Donald Trump last year, alleging that contributed to the deadly January 6th invasion of the U.S. Capitol. Post-election, the company dissolved the unit on civic integrity where she had been working, which Huggins said was the moment she began to believe Facebook would not invest in keeping their platform from being dangerous. At issue, she says, are algorithms that govern what shows up on users' news feeds. Huggins said a 2018 change to the content flow contributed to more divisiveness and ill will. Facebook, for its part, derided the allegations as misleading, saying there is not evidence that it is the primary cause for polarization.
Abe wins again. Another great day in the books. Now to cap it all off with a medicated foot bath and a nice deep ear cue tipping.
The two bills are linked.
He would like to see both of them move at the same time, or at least have an agreement, a framework that would make, I'd say, both sides comfortable.
But progressives acknowledge they might have to make some concessions. Moderate Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are calling for a smaller package. Manchin is pushing for $1.5 trillion, far from the $3.5 trillion that progressives had wanted.
We need to get this reconciliation bill, and it's going to be tough. Like, we're going to have to come down in our number, and we're going to have to do that work. So we're going to get to work and see what we can get to.
Republicans, meanwhile,
I'm currently suspended, and if I do not comply to get the vaccine by November 1st, I will be terminated. After everything I did as a nurse throughout the whole year during the pandemic, I just felt betrayed.
Similar mandates for healthcare workers are now going into effect in New York, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. As hospitals, some states are also going above and beyond to beat out the competition. In Arizona, for example, several hospitals recently announced that they're doubling pay and even health benefits to attract healthcare workers. It's gotten so bad that Arizona health officials estimate there are roughly 1,200 job openings across the state.
Compounding that is we're seeing increasing call-offs of our staff. So a lot of our staff have
Oh, not Bart, my little angel.
He was arrested for vandalism and shoplifting, sir.
Yeah, that sounds like Bart, that little devil.
If you don't send his bail money in the next 90 minutes, he's going straight to the downtown juvenile detention center.
Grandfather, help me, please.
Don't worry, Bart. Just tell me what you need and I'll do it. You're